to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. I'm Zach Goins, editor-in-chief, and I am joined here by Mr. Johnny Sobchak, senior writer. Johnny, it's been a long time since we've podcasted, hasn't it?
Yes, it has.
Not really. We're going back to back here because of, as the aforementioned trips in last week's episode, me going to the beach, Johnny going to New York City. The schedule is a little thrown off, so we are pre-recording this episode to review Cruella, which comes out, which will have been out by the time you're listening to this, but we are recording on May 24th. As such, there has not been any news since we recorded yesterday for Army of the Dead, except for one piece, which we are going to break down. But with that being said, here's the schedule for today. No news except for the One Piece, then our Cruella review, which unfortunately, because of the fact that it's not out yet, Johnny hasn't gotten to see it, so it'll be a solo review with Johnny asking me about the movie. And then to just make this more than a 20-minute podcast, we're going to throw in Best Movie Theater Things Draft. Get a little competitive here as theaters are opening back up. Why not celebrate everything we love about going to the movies by having a little draft for it? So that's what's on the docket today. I will ask you, I don't know if anything drastic has happened overnight, Johnny. What's going on? Has anything changed between Sunday evening and Monday morning?
We're the time traveling podcasters, Zach. You're not going to get this kind of content anywhere else, ladies and gentlemen, and other. I mean, this is it's a exciting little time here. I haven't done anything at all since we finished wrapping up our other episode.
I know one time Jake and I, when we were doing this, we attempted to predict the future and gave a fake news segment, but that didn't turn out very well. So I think we're just going to stick to I think
that's
the one piece of news that did happen overnight.
Yeah, because it's a pretty big one. So,
but I will say, in my what's going on, I cracked open a Corona last night. I continued my binge. Too Fast, Too Furious, 5 stars. That's all I'll say about that, because I am just kidding. I'm going to say a little bit more. But I'm thoroughly enjoying myself 2 movies into the Fast franchise. And this is, I know, Too Fast, Too Furious is the supposed low point of the saga, the Fast saga. And sure, it's dumb. Sure, it's cheesy. But it was so much fun. And I was just absolutely living my best life with the new addition. Tyrese joined the cast. So we've got a brand new character. And I'm all in. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and if this is the low point, like I said, it's only up from here, so they're just going to continue to get better. So I'm excited to continue on this high-speed journey through the saga leading up to F9. Johnny, you've got some homework to do.
Yeah, yes and no. When you said that you continued your binge in Too Fast, Too Furious, I thought you were going to say you continued your binge too fast and that you were starting to feel burnt out by
Never.
It sounds like the opposite.
The only thing burning is the rubber on the pavement as we course through these Miami streets at high speed. Okay.
I very vaguely remember as a child seeing either commercials for this movie or trailers. Maybe I saw a little bit of the movie like on television at some point. The only thing I recall is of course the Miami setting, like the South Beach setting, but then also the big garage scene. I think that's towards the end
where they have all the decoys.
Yeah.
That was
fun, cool visual. Like it makes for like a fun action sequence. And again, I don't really know how that holds up to today's standards with that franchise, but it's a whole different ball game now, I guess you could say.
Right. That was a lot of fun. Like they're basically being chased in their two sports cars, and then they go in and have 100
That's
other
right.
cars
Yeah.
come out to mix it up. It's like Baby Driver on a greater scale of the three red cars using them
Oh yeah. Yeah.
as a
That's funny.
disguise. But like I said, Tyrese Gibson, and this is when Ludacris comes in for the first
Oh,
part.
okay.
So two major players moving forward that are going to be added in, and then like the core family or Vin Diesel family. Those people were not in this one, which was
That's
like
a nice Vin Diesel.
thank you. That's like Michelle Rodriguez and Vin Diesel
Yeah.
that you met
Does-
in
is-
the first movie.
Is any of this movie set in California, or is it all in Florida?
It's all in Miami, because like basically at the end of the first movie, that was in California, and then like Paul Walker's character, who was a police officer, like basically ditches the police to let Vin Diesel run free, and so he has to
Right.
go on the run. He's like now a wanted fugitive for like betraying the
Okay.
police, and so he goes on the run and ends up in Miami.
Okay, cool. I dig
But
it. Hey, respect for the man.
38 on Metascore. I think it's like 33 on Rotten
Okay.
Tomatoes, but I gave this about a 76. So,
Okay.
I'm just having a blast over here. Liked it more than Army of the Dead. You can get behind that, hopefully.
I absolutely can. So more power to you, Zach. More power to you. I would imagine, like you said, all up from here. So you're just gonna be having, you're gonna be in heaven.
And I didn't clarify this last time, but so the viewing order, because I don't know if you're familiar, but they're kind of like very confusing.
Good.
So, because like the way that they came out was
Right.
obviously like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like so on. But so the way that I've been told to watch them is 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 3, 7, 8. So apparently 3, which is Tokyo Drift, it's kind of like its own standalone story that then later comes in with the character. So I will be watching 3 towards the end. So my next one is the 4th one, which is actually the only one that I had seen before back in like 5th grade at the movie theater. But Tokyo Drift I'm curious to see how that works out, because like I've watched a 2001 movie and a 2003 movie. Then I'm going to 2009, 11, 13, and then I have to go back to 2006. So that's going to be like, I'm sure that'll be weird, and just like in the quality of the movie and the effects and everything. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, those movies are, at least until they get into like true blockbuster territory, like they're mostly practical, like fairly reality based. So hopefully it won't be too much of a.
Yes, these two have both been very about racing and driving versus going to space or like supervillains. So
awesome. Good.
I'm excited to see it blow up. But I know
Speaking of
you haven't
blockbusters,
watched it. What'd you say?
Speaking of blockbusters.
Blockbusters, good. There's the segue. What's the news? The news that happened not overnight, this morning. The breaking news, Johnny. What do we have?
Yeah, so we finally, and seemingly out of the blue, I wasn't expecting this and hadn't heard any rumblings. I'm not sure if you had, but
I heard those rumblings 6 minutes before, Johnny, that I sent in the chat.
Right, yeah. Chloe Zhao's the recent Oscar winner for Nomadland, writer, director, editor extraordinaire. Her next film, the Marvel Studios Eternals, which everyone's been looking forward to, one of the most anticipated films of the year, one of the most anticipated comic book movies that's on the horizon, finally got a teaser, poster, and trailer this morning, just in time for A Quiet Place 2 to hit theaters. It's getting very, very well received, I would say, so far. It's like I said, it's just a teaser. It's about 2 minutes long. Doesn't go into a lot of dialogue, doesn't go into a lot of plot. It's very similar to the Shang-Chi teaser that we got, I think sometime last month. I think I liked the Shang-Chi teaser, and I like this teaser as well. I think they both look good. I think they both look like they're bringing something a little different to the table compared to
Mhm.
past MCU movies, especially from a cultural standpoint in some respects. Um, yeah, I think it's not quite the, oh my God, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios have no idea how they're going to market or handle Eternals because they're just so mind blown by what they have on their hands. It's not quite to that level. I didn't
Right.
really expect it to be, despite what we had been hearing online. But it definitely has shades of Zhao's work, um, which is great, cinematography wise, and the visuals, and the cast of course is stacked. So no complaints there. They all look great. The effects, the costume, the designs in general all looking pretty great. So I'm excited. I mean, it's doesn't give away too much, which is nice,
Mhm.
because it is still about, at this point, what, 6 months out, or 5.5 months out. So I think the timing on this was good, and it left me wanting to see more. So I think that's always a promising point. Zach, what did you think or feel about it?
I'm very much with you on a lot of what you said. You know, though I saw a little bit more of those, what we'd heard basically about like, oh my gosh, like this was mind blowing, the
Yeah,
sunset or whatever, like all of those kind of comments. Like it did not blow me away, but I could see more of like the, compared to other Marvel movies, that
right. Yeah,
this is strikingly different from like what you would see, um whether it was like the silhouettes and the sunlight coming through the tint, or just like the ocean, like the
yeah,
colors and the look of it, the feel of it in general. um
yeah.
until that
Agreed.
last little tag at the end, where it's of course the classic title comes up and then the music keeps playing, and then we've got another like 6 second snippet. That's like Marvel trailer 101.
Yeah,
So they got that in there. But like you, I am still super, I know you have like, I don't know if it was the script or just like the leak of the summary, but like you know a bit more about like what this is going to entail. But from watching this trailer, I am still not necessarily confused, but I just don't really know what direction it's going to go. And there doesn't seem, I believe Kit Harington is cast as the villain. If that's, I'm not sure. I feel like I've heard that,
I
but
can't comment on any of that.
okay. Well, I don't know necessarily. Like from watching this trailer, I have no idea who the villain is, what their mission is. Like this doesn't reveal anything about like the objective of the movie, rather than just like showing you the vibe and what it's going to be like. I guess there is no like portal in the sky or like light beam that shoots up like most Marvel movies have,
Yeah,
that signifies the villain in the climax. So I mean I have full faith in Marvel. I have faith in Chloe Zhao to deliver something that's unique and also still like familiar and fits into the greater MCU universe. So
right.
I'm excited for it. I will say, as our friend Josh pointed out, that the fact that at no point in the trailer did it say from
Yeah, surprising.
Oscar-winning director, like
Yeah,
she just won the top award in cinema, and you're not
right.
gonna. I know you're Marvel, you're the biggest franchise in the history of franchises, but like, come on, how
Right.
can you not? It's the first time that you've had this honor to have an Oscar-winning director, and you're not gonna flex it at all.
Yeah. Well, it's even funnier, and kind of sillier, as I mentioned, that this is something that had been talked about for like many months now, because the award season was so long, and Nomadland was just a front runner
the
for so
tweets
long.
the tweets that were like, imagine when Marvel
Yeah.
throws up from Oscar winning director in their trailer and then it doesn't happen. Always
Right.
subverting
Exactly.
expectations, Marvel.
I know. Yeah. And I just think that, you know, it's funny because all along when I had been seeing those, I was like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense, but I never really bought into it because it's just something that they've never really done before. And Eric Weaver on Twitter tweeted earlier that, um, like that's just further proof that with Marvel, like Marvel Studios and everything under Kevin Feige, like they're never gonna make it about any individual like cog in the machine, if that makes sense. Like it's not, doesn't matter who you are, how like prestigious you might be, like you're going to be you're not more important or going to draw attention away from the brand, if you know what I mean. And Marvel Studios is just such a tightly run ship and is so focused on the world itself and maintaining that consistency and not trying, I guess in this instance, trying to like almost like elevate this film above others, if that makes sense. Like I think if you do that with this movie, then it's like, okay, well, what about how's that make the other movies look almost? You know what I mean?
Go win an Oscar, other movies.
Exactly. Go win an Oscar.
I didn't realize the
who
MCU
directed
was filled with
Ant-Man 1 and 2.
snowflakes. Hey, Peyton Reed, keep that Tar Heels name out of your mouth.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much my thoughts on it, and I'm looking forward to more. I mean, I don't need a lot more, but because this is again pretty much what I expected, and I would like to keep it as surprising or as fresh as possible. But I'll be curious to see how this is shown off more in the next few months before it comes out.
As am I. And another half piece of news that we just forgot to note last week, when we were talking about the additions to Knives Out 2, we were remiss to forget Leslie Odom Jr. being cast fresh off his Oscar nomination for One Night in Miami, from the stardom of Hamilton, and now he will be joining this cast, and that's super exciting. I mean, I'm beyond those two titles right there. I don't really know much about him, but
What else is there to know, right?
Yeah, I don't know if there is, but super exciting to have him join the cast. And by the time that you're all listening to this, there have probably been another 3 or 4 cast members announced, so we're going to be playing catch up following this. But
Right.
had to get that correction out there since we missed it last week. But like I said, no news from last night to this morning, so let's get into this review. Johnny, are you ready to learn about Cruella?
I would dare say I'm more than ready.
Oh, baby, let's go.
She thought she owned everyone.
It's foolish. Unhinged. Well, you're fired. Why are you speaking?
I think you nicked me. But there's something about poetic justice that's just so poetic.
You won't admit you love me, and so how
The overlight.
ever to know? You always tell me.
Get her.
This doesn't have to be a scene.
It really, really does. I'd like to remind you all that I'm doing this in heels.
What was your name?
Cruella.
If you can make your...
So, Cruella, the latest of the live action Disney, I guess this would be considered a remake, kind of a reboot, prequel as well. You know, it's not necessarily like, it is inspired obviously by an animated Disney property, but it's not retelling like The Lion King or like the Aladdin. You know, it's just taking characters from that and taking place in the world. But Cruella, starring Emma Stone as the titular character, Emma Thompson as well, Paul Walter Hauser, Joel Fry, and Mark Strong, among others. As I said, we're recording this on a Monday. The embargo does not lift until Wednesday, so no critic score from Rotten Tomatoes, no audience score yet, but I will stamp this with an 81 from me, which is as shocking to me as anyone, I would imagine. I gave this a solid 4 stars. Really, really, really enjoyed it, more than I expected to, because first of all, it just seemed like an unnecessary Disney cash grab, which is standard when it comes to the live action remakes. But, you know, for this to end up being my favorite of any of the live action remakes, reboots, whatever you want to call them, I was shocked. But, you know, my love of Emma Stone is well documented, and I should never have doubted her and what she's able to put on screen. And obviously, when the movie, you're playing the title character, then you're going to have a huge impact on whether the movie is good or not.
Right.
And that was definitely the case here. So, quick synopsis for all you listeners out there. Set in 1970s London amidst the punk rock revolution, Cruella follows a younger grifter named Estella, a clever and creative girl determined to make a name for herself with her designs. She befriends a pair of young thieves who appreciate her appetite for mischief, and together they are able to build a life for themselves on the London streets. One day, Estella's flair for fashion catches the eye of the Baroness von Hellman, a fashion legend who is devastatingly chic and terrifyingly hot. but their relationship sets in motion a course of events and revelations that will cause Estella to embrace her wicked side and become the raucous, fashionable, and revenge-bent Cruella. So I don't know how familiar you are with the 101 Dalmatians, 102 Dalmatians movies from Disney, whether it's the animated version or the live action reboot before the live action reboot, back when they did it with Glenn Close as Cruella. I obviously had seen those in my childhood watching Disney movies, but did not remember them from anything. I couldn't tell you anything about. I know Cruella's the bad guy. She's she is like about fashion and she wants to kill Dalmatians. Like that's all I could tell you from those. But it was fun to get to see sort of the pair of young thieves she befriends are Horace and Jasper, which are like the Hugh Laurie and I can't remember his name, the Arthur Weasley from Harry Potter. He plays the other one, but it's fun to see like those kind of origins of like, I didn't know that I needed a Cruella origin story by any means, but I'm very glad that I got one. Like I said, very surprised that this ended up being my favorite of any of these. But again, we've talked about it previously. Live action Disney remakes happen a lot and none of them have been like particularly great. So I did, like I said, 4 stars, 81 out of 100 here for me. So I enjoyed this quite a bit. But even for it to be my favorite, it didn't have like a necessarily high bar to clear. But this cleared it by quite a lot. And like I said, Emma Stone's a huge part of that, but so is the rest of the cast. Paul Walter Hauser, who plays Horace. Just kidding. I want to make sure I get this right because Horace and Jasper are they're like Crabbe and Goyle, from Harry Potter. They're interchangeable. Paul Walter Hauser is Horace, and he's just a scene stealer in every time he's on screen. He's so funny. Kind of like Joel Fry's character of Jasper is a little bit more of like the brains of the operation, and then Paul Walter Hauser's a little thick. He's got this little like sidekick dog that helps them with their heists by like running through the crowd and pickpocketing and like carrying it back. But he's hysterical. But also Mark Strong is in there as Boris. You said you're not super familiar. I did not remember, like the name sounded familiar, but I didn't really remember the, I guess, specifics about it. But he's like her henchman eventually, by the time that we get to those 101, 102. And Emma Thompson as the Baroness, who turns out to be like the villain in this movie. Also very good. They have a good back and forth. It's almost like I've seen a lot of comparisons from people who have seen it to The Devil Wears Prada. While I haven't seen that movie, I know this is very similar to it in the sense that like there's the bitchy fashion designer who's like the hot shot, and then she takes like this associate under her wing and is just like abusive to her, but like helps her, I guess. And that's very much Cruella, or Estella at that point, goes under the wing of the Baroness and is kind of learning and climbing the ladder of the fashion kingdom. And then it takes the non-Devil Wears Prada twist, and she starts to rival her for other reasons, which I won't go too far into since you haven't seen it. But the style here is phenomenal. I think it's very excessively stylized, but it works. It's overly stylized from like the production design and the sets and everything look great, but then like the costumes are just, I want to say I read that Emma Stone has like 27 costumes in the movie, which is like
pretty awesome.
Part of it is like just different montages, like when she's explaining like her origins, it goes through like 3 or 4 different like crime jobs where they wore disguises, and like those count, but like they go back and forth with like Cruella versus the Baroness and like fancy outfits, and they all look great. So I think that that's definitely something to keep an eye on awards wise. The soundtrack, Josh may have thought it was overkill. He was kind of mixed on it. After Army of the Dead, you may be a little tired of overbearing soundtracks, but it's kind of like, if you were to, I loved it. It's very nonstop. So I could see how you could say that it's overbearing, but it's like if you were to combine Guardians Volume 1 and Guardians Volume 2, like the awesome mixtapes, into one, that's like Disney had to drop an absolute bag on the rights for all these songs, because it's like any popular song from like the 60s through the 80s is in this movie.
Good Lord.
So there's a ton of needle drops. Some of them are sort of obvious. Some of them work better than others, but I thought it just added to like the fun and the style of this.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
well, on that note, real quick, I'm going to interject.
Yeah.
With my first question. So you like the soundtrack overall. Was there any particular, without, I guess, getting into spoilers and like explaining the context, like was there any one or two tracks that like really popped out to you, or that you enjoyed like the use of them or like the context? Because I like thinking, you mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy. I can think to very specific scenes and songs used in those, and I'm like, I love that they used that there. Like I love that song now because I heard it in that movie. Like,
right. I can't honestly. I didn't like take note of one particular one that works better than all the rest. Like I said, it is. Let me see if I can pull up the soundtrack in general just to get some titles here to give you an idea of what it may be. But it is like I said, nonstop. So they do kind of like blend from one to the other very quickly.
Wow.
Let's see. We've got, I don't know if you're good. I don't know. Like, I don't know the names of these necessarily, but I would recognize them like when I hear them. Bloody Well Right by Supertramp, Whisper Whisper by the Bee Gees, 5 to 1, The Doors, Feeling Good, Nina Simone, Fire, Ohio Players. Let's see, we got Ike and Tina Turner, Electric Light Orchestra, Queen, Blondie, The Clash.
Okay.
So there's like a ton. And then there is also Nicholas Britell's score, which I'm going to be completely honest, love him. Excellent work in, no, not an I just don't, because the soundtrack was so much, I don't think I ever took note of a score of like the score itself. Maybe that's on me. I'm sure Nicholas Britell, with his work with Barry Jenkins, with his work on Succession, and just like being one of the best there is right now, like, right, I'm not going to doubt his. I'll have to go back and listen to the score on its own on like Spotify, but
right.
That okay. If anything, that's on me.
Hey, that's on me. I
take responsibility for that. I will say, like I said, it's an 81 out of 100. It's not a 100 out of 100. And one of those reasons is it's a bit long, 2 hours and 13 minutes, I believe, which when I saw that, I was a little hesitant. 2 hours, 14 minutes. But just because I was like, wow, this Disney origin story live action is 2+ hours. I did not know that it needed to be that long, and it didn't. It could have been 2 hours. You could have tightened it up a little bit. The second act, once she turns into Cruella, basically, right. She's going back and forth with the Baroness, and they're just kind of like, basically the Baroness is trying to, like, every event that she goes to, Cruella shows up there as a surprise and one-ups her, and she's just like stealing her thunder as the like style icon in London. And so they do that maybe like 3 or 4 different times, and it could have been cut down by a time. Right. It's not like each one's like a 10-minute segment or anything, but just there's a lot of back and forth that could have been tightened to sort of cut this runtime down a little bit, because you get the point. I think at that point they were just like, let's show off more costumes. But yeah, that didn't take away too many points for me. I was very into it. Like I said, didn't know I needed a Cruella backstory, but I was very much into it from her childhood through her like early adulthood and the change from Estella to Cruella. And now I am 100% behind. I will say at the ending point, there still seems to be a ways to go between where she is when Cruella ends and then being a dog murderer in 101 Dalmatians. So I could see they're very clearly setting this up to have more here, whether it is a Cruella 2 or whether it is a 101 live action. Because there is like Anita Darling and I can't even remember what the two Roger and Anita are like the characters who own Pongo and Perdita in 101 Dalmatians. Those are the 2 parent Dalmatians. And so that kind of sets up at the end. So they're very clearly working there. And I would like to see a Cruella 2 in which we see her get even more like dastardly and then go to that. I don't want it to jump straight to 101 if that's what they're trying to do, because I feel like there's still a gap in her evilness.
No, I think that makes sense. Well, on Emma Stone's bit, like, you obviously love her and you've been talking very highly of her like thus far. And I know it's kind of strange because, you know, pandemic, obviously we're all aware of, and delays and things like that. But this is really her first on screen like performance in a couple of years, because I know she was in Zombieland 2, which came out in 2019. But then before that, her previous was 2018, and that was The Favorite, which was obviously, you know, she was nominated for an Oscar and did very well there. But so she's had a little bit of a hiatus. How did you feel overall about like her performance and like really seeing her again in like a big, like high profile film like this? And I know, I mean, it's Disney live action, it's very campy. So you're not expecting like, you know, Oscar winning like performance necessarily, but for her and like knowing her level and like what she can do, how would you rate this among like just comparing to her own work and her own filmography?
I mean, obviously, as I've said, super high on her in this performance. It's obviously not like a La La Land level or The Favorite level performance, but it's very fun because she almost is playing two characters here. You know, because like she starts off as Estella, which is like the good side of her, and then as she kind of learns the truth behind like her origin and what happened to her, it starts off with her as a child and her mother's death, and then it turns out that there's some I guess questionable circumstances about how that happened, and that's sort of what drives her down this darker path. And it's not necessarily that she like turns from Estella. It's not like she's the Joker or something, you know, where she like breaks and is suddenly like evil. It's kind of almost like Estella is putting on a performance as Cruella.
Okay.
So it's like a character within a character, which lets Emma Stone have like a good range of being a little bit more wholesome and caring, and then just being like an absolute like villainess. So that's like a lot of fun within this performance. And there's one scene in particular that really stood out where she basically like comes to this fountain, which is where she first went after her mother's death. And throughout the movie, she like returns there and uses that as like where she talks to her mom, sort of like as if it was like the graveyard. And there's one scene in particular where she has like this really good monologue talking to her mother about like what's happening, and good emotion. She gets teared up, and that's like Emma Stone elevating a Disney live action movie to her standards.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting because you mentioned kind of the duality of the character, like the character within the character. And I think that also kind of aligns up with, I mean, this comparison has been made, and it's basically impossible to avoid it because of the timing and because
we live in a society.
Because we live in a society where Disney marketed this film the way they did, with the trailer, the editing, and the song, and the even the font and things like that. Where the trailer immediately got compared to Joker. I'm like, oh, this is a female Joker. This is like a Disney version of Joker. And of course, Disney really has the precedent on this because they did do Maleficent twice now over the last decade, and that is the only other Disney villain solo film that I can think of. Correct me if I'm wrong, at least in live action.
I think so as well.
So they have that. So I haven't seen either of those films. Of course, I've seen Joker, and I made those comparisons, and I think those are valid, at least from the trailer. How would you compare it to what Disney has done previously, like with Maleficent, based on what you like have seen and know, and then of course Joker, which we've both seen?
Right. I have not seen Maleficent either of those. But Joker, you know, I definitely saw those tweets, and I can understand like where they're coming from, just because it's like, hey, this character is going to become twisted and evil. And it is sort of like set in obviously this is more of like an eclectic and like steampunk kind of setting, but it's still sort of like the darker, gritty, like Gotham or London, if whatever you want to call it. But
Right. Well, that's the thing. I didn't even realize, and you mentioned steampunk. So I don't know if this is meant to be like an alternate reality almost. Because with Joker, of course, it's Gotham. Like it's very much set up like New York, and they filmed in New York for parts of it, but it's not New York
right,
City. But there are many parallels to real world, 1970s New York and the corruption and
this is very
the
real world as
dirtiness of
well.
life. Yeah.
It's not like steampunk only in the sense of like that is the style that their outfits are going for, not like the general public outfits, but like
Yeah.
the what Cruella and what the Baroness deem as in style, that their like eccentric outfits are going to be. So it's not like this is like what the entire universe is. It's very much like real world London when they're not like in costume. But back to like, I don't know. This is obviously very more, like you said, like camp and like, I don't know. It's not nearly as dark or gritty as the Joker in any sense of the way. There's no like, mental health like aspect to this whatsoever. Right. So I feel like on the surface it's easy to make those comparisons, but like if you were to watch this, like sure it's a person like descending into their villain character, but it's not like I wouldn't really.
Would you say that this does not say as much about society as Joker?
I think Joker lives in a society, but Cruella does not.
All right, fair play. And along those same lines, let me make the Joker comparison. This is a very strange time. I can't remember when this was originally meant for release. Surely it was delayed at least once due to the pandemic. And now is getting the the Disney Plus Premier Access Plus theatrical treatment, which is interesting. And it's coming out right pretty much at the kickoff of the summer movie season, which is cool. But what do you think? Joker was a movie that was basically primed up. Like it was a big key Warner Brothers release like that year, 2019. But they made it like an awards party. Like it came out, it premiered at Venice, it won the Golden Lion, and then it went on to, get 11 Oscar nominations, and it won a pair of them. As far as like awards potential that you could see for this. And of course, I think in the past, some of these live action Disney movies have done, they've gotten some decent attention there. I know, Jungle Book, for example, won VFX, and I think Cinderella got nominated for maybe a couple different things, and same thing with Maleficent and the hair and makeup, things like that. What do you think the potential is for this? Because I, as I mentioned on last week's podcast, am working on, or have been working on, or it's probably posted by now, a big Oscars piece for next year, kind of previewing how that could look. And right now I only have this nominated for one in one category for one Oscar, and that it would be costume design. Which based on everything I've heard so far from you and what I've seen seems like pretty spot on. The production design and things like that also look really good, and the hair and makeup definitely stands out a little bit. But I'm not quite willing to go in on any of those yet, but I'd be curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're more, hence the super long preview, but you're more of like the Oscar specialist than I am. But I will say, just doing my quick homework here, that I'm with you on costumes. Jenny Beavan was the costume director, who is a 10-time Academy Award nominee, 2-time winner, most recently in 2016 for your favorite, for Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh God, yes.
So if that tells you anything, I was going to say initially that this gives me sort of like Birds of Prey vibes, and that like I watched it and I was like, this should be a costume winner or a costume nominee at least. But then that came out in February, and by the time the Oscars rolled around, it was kind of lost and forgotten. This is obviously a little later than February, but I could still see it sort of like falling by the wayside, unfortunately. I'm not entirely sure like who your big players are later in the year for what could compare or compete. But costume would be my biggest, I guess my biggest recommendation. The production designer, Fiona Crombie, was nominated for an Oscar for The Favorite. So has worked with Emma Stone. So there's a little bit of like, of the precedent there. It's not like, I feel like because they've had wins and nominees like on the crew, that'll give them more of like more bargaining, more influence when it comes time. And it's not as easy to just swipe them aside because it came out a while ago. So
Right.
I could see some. I don't think there's going to be like not even that it needed to be said. It's not going to be a Best Picture nominee. I don't think Emma Stone would be nominated for actress. I could see Disney trying to like push her just because it's Emma Stone and this is like one of their movies. But like we'll probably get a screener that has for your consideration Emma Stone Best Actress
every category.
But yeah, but I would say production design and costume design are the best bets there.
Okay. Gotcha. Sounds good.
But yeah, that's Cruella.
Cruella.
I know you do not technically have to see it because you're not podcasting about it and you're not writing anything about it. But with AMC, I know you have AMC stubs. I personally would say out of Mulan, out of Raya and the Last Dragon, I believe this is the third premiere access that Disney Plus is doing. This is definitely the most worthy of those three to spend the money on. But if you're in a position where you feel comfortable to go to the theaters, I would much rather go and spend less money and get to see it on a bigger screen. I think that would definitely be a great move because like I said, 81 out of 100, 4 stars from me. I was delighted by how surprising this was. So
awesome. Well, it's a pleasant surprise. I will definitely keep it in mind. I don't know just because I'm so busy coming up if I will actually get up to the theater and check it out. But
cancel your A Quiet Place screening and go see this in New York.
Cancel my trip to New York. Make it all a Cruella week. But yeah,
do a 101 Dalmatians, 102 Dalmatians marathon, and then go into Cruella.
Fantastic.
Well, you are going to see a movie next week on the biggest screen in America. So that's pretty impressive. That sounds like a great thing about going to the movie theater. And that's what we're about to do right now. We're doing the best movie theater things draft. Yes, that's super general, very vague things. Anything you want about going to the movies, the experience, whether you're talking about what's on screen or what's at the concession stand or what's in the bathroom, anything about going to the movies is fair game. They're open again. The summer schedule is heating up. So we're going back to the theater and we're talking about everything that we love about it to hopefully get you excited to go back as well. This will be a draft, just the two of us. So there should be plenty on the board, but with it being a draft, there are no repeats. So once something has been taken, it has been taken and cannot be selected by the other person. It's going to be snake style, which means that if Johnny goes first, I will then go second and third, and then it'll come back to Johnny. But, well, does that work? Let me think about that. If we only have 2 people, should we just go alternating, just 1 and 1?
Is that not what snake style would be with 2 people?
Well, if it's snake style with 2 people, this is great for the listeners out there. Snake style with 2 people would be Johnny, Zach, Johnny, Zach, Johnny, Zach. Like,
okay, yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
So then I would be getting 2 picks for every one that you got.
Yeah, we'll be alternating.
So let's just alternate and we'll do a little coin flip here. I will pull it up, the virtual coin flip, to see who gets to go first.
Johnny, back to his cheating ways, ladies and gentlemen.
Johnny, give me a call. Heads or tails?
Tails.
Flipping. Heads. I will defer. Well, it's not snake style, so I don't get 2 picks. So I'll take that first pick. And here we go. Let's get started.
I guess you would get last pick if you deferred. Would be the advantage of that? I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like there's enough on the board that if it had been snake style, I was going to defer so I could get 2 and 3. But since that does not make sense here, I will take the first pick. And I am going with everyone's favorite thing about going to the movies, and that is the previews. You know, you're going to the theater, you've got the big screen in front of you, that green, beautiful MPAA screen comes on. I will say it's changed a bit for
MPAA,
me.
Though.
It's changed a bit for me because of like our position being like movie people. You know, this, and also just the way that things have changed, of like everything releases on social media. It's not like the olden days when you would go and see a trailer for the first time in the theater.
Yeah.
But like now, by the time I go see a movie, I've seen the trailer already online 3 times.
Yeah.
But I guess for some not podcasters that are still going to theaters, they'll see it for the first time on the big screen. But just the surprise of like not knowing what's next, what you're going to get to see, hoping maybe going in and hoping that you're going to see a Dune trailer this time around.
Right.
But kind of the thrill, and then just trying to guess, like you see, okay, Warner Brothers pops up, what's it going to be like? So that the excitement of a trailer and just knowing what more is coming to the theater.
Right. And to your point, I mean, about, the first time, not having that same feeling. I mean, I had that tweet when I went to see Kong versus Godzilla, and it was, of course, I'd seen the Dune trailer many, 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 many times already, but I had not seen it in a theater. I mean, the trailer came out in September, and I just saw Godzilla versus Kong in March. And seeing it in IMAX, like on the big screen, like with an audience, like it was like a totally different like feeling, and having that size and being able to see more detail in the sound, like it definitely does make a difference, and is a much more enjoyable experience seeing it that way, even no matter how many times you might have seen something previously, if you knew what it was going into it.
All right, previews off the board. Number 1 pick in the draft. Johnny, you're up. What are you taking?
I am taking the unmatchable screen size, screen quality, and sound system quality. The bang bang double whammy that you get with the theatrical experience. That's the one thing that I think people have been missing more than anything else, like over the last year, with theaters being shuttered for a long time, and not being able to go out, and you're sitting at home and you're streaming stuff, or watching Blu-rays on your TV or on your iPad, on your laptop, on your phone, maybe. Like,
boo, no matter psychopath.
No matter what, I love streaming. Has many, 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 many benefits, and I am a big fan of a lot of streamers and the shows they put out, and the films that they put out. But if I had the option to watch anything on a TV versus in a theater, if I could install a theater in my home, conveniently, and it could afford it, like, it's no contest. Like, there's no way that not having a bigger screen, having a better projection system, having the full sound system of whether it be a regular theater or an IMAX theater or a Dolby theater, like, there's nothing compares to that. You can't top it. And so that is a thing. I mean, when I got to see Tenet last Labor Day weekend, and got to see that in the theater, and I traveled like 4 hours to go see it in IMAX, like, it was worth it, in the respect that I could not have seen it any better anywhere else. Like, that was the way to see it. And like, as I already just mentioned, seeing the Dune trailer in that format was a completely different experience. Like, for me as a big fan, like, it felt so different, and was just so much more exciting seeing it that way. And I have already been going to some movies this year and seeing them in theaters, and enjoying them a lot more, because I saw them that way, and I got to see them blown up, and with the sound shaking the damn walls. Like, it's I think that for me is the most important thing, and I think a lot of people would say that, because for your eyes and ears, the way you absorb a movie, that's the primary goal, right? So I'm taking sound and screen at number 1.
I totally respect that. I will. So my second pick, if I had my way, was going to be IMAX. So I'll tie that in here. I don't think it would be fair to pick IMAX after picking sound and screen, because that's what IMAX is basically.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm 100% with you on the viewing experience of, even if you have the biggest TV possible, like I think it's 65 inches, like, and that's great for a home like viewing experience in the living room. But
Yeah, absolutely.
can't be beat by or it can be beat and is beat by a theatrical experience, and just to be totally immersed by everything. I'll never forget the Star Wars Attack of the Clones in preschool. I had just graduated preschool. This viewing experience has stuck with me. But when Obi-Wan Kenobi's chasing Jango Fett, and we got a little tease of this in The Mandalorian with these the pulse grenades or whatever they're called, but
Right.
the bomb that Jango, and it wasn't the same when I was watching on my TV in The Mandalorian, but the bomb that's just like that thing absolutely like ruptured my eardrums in the theater, and it was incredible. It has obviously stuck with me for a very long time.
He was crying tears of joy as his ears were bleeding out.
Exactly. The tears were actually coming from my ears. That's how messed up they were. But screen and sound, yeah, that's a very valid first round pick. So I respect that immensely.
And I will say that previews were certainly on my list as well. So
okay.
good pick.
We're just having that's the thing about this. It's going to be a competitive draft. We both want to win, but at the same time, there are so many great things about movies and going to the movies that I think that we're both going to be totally okay and have great lists. So my number 2, it's time to get going here. This may be the greatest invention to ever happen in the history of Earth.
Okay.
And that is the Coke freestyle machine.
Ooh.
Because when you're going to the movies, I don't know. This is a recent innovation, at the movie theater. Like there was a Qdoba by my house that had one of these, and that's probably like the first time I remember like consistently having it. But movie theaters have recently like turned to this. I know the AMC in Durham, AMC South Point, has these for everything. It's no longer, so I don't know if every movie theater has them, but if you go to a theater that does have it, it's just a game changer. It's not just, okay, concession worker, can you give me either a Sprite or a Coke? No, it is, the world is your oyster with the Coke freestyle machine. You can get whatever you want to drink. You can mix and match. You can make your own beverages. And alongside this, I'm going to throw a little like side pick in with this that goes right with it. Coke freestyle machine plus big ass drinks. Because at the movie theater, if you get a small, it's still bigger than a large at any restaurant. And it's totally acceptable to get like a 64-ounce soda and just like slurp it down during the movie. So that's absolutely a game changer. If I'm at home, I'm not going to open up a 2-liter bottle and pour half of it into a big cup for me. I don't even have a cup that big. So
I don't even have a cup that big.
Coke freestyle and big ass drinks are one of the things that makes going to the movies so worthwhile.
Yeah, I can't deny that. The Coke machine freestyle is a wonderful invention, like without a doubt. And like I'm not someone who is as big on.
Are you a concession guy?
So the answer is no. Generally, especially if I'm going by myself to a movie, I do not consume anything really. Like I don't get snacks, I don't get drinks. Like well, for one, I don't feel like spending the money, quite frankly. And secondly, I feel like it just kind of distracts me a little bit. Like it's just like I'd rather not have to think about, oh, let me like open this up real quick, or like let me eat this, or like whatever. And I've especially felt that way coming back, like with masks as well.
Right. I've
been a little bit less inclined to do that, but I mean, especially if I'm going on a date night or something, with Reagan, like my girlfriend, like I'd be more likely to get something, or like get something to share with her. But yeah, the Coke machine, I can't cap. It's amazing. Cherry vanilla Coke is my go-to, I will say.
I will throw this out there. My favorite at that Qdoba was strawberry Fanta, a delicacy in America. But when I'm at the movies and having one of those aforementioned big ass drinks, I can't do it. Strawberry Fanta for that quantity is just too sweet, too sugary. So even though I love the Coke freestyle machine, I feel like it's hard to go wrong with. This is gonna make me sound like a hypocrite with a Diet Coke or a Sprite.
Oh my god. Okay. All right.
But just to have those unlimited possibilities at your fingertips.
Hey, you can't beat that. Am I right?
Coke's a hell of a drug.
All right. Perfect segue.
To drugs? Is that your pick?
No. Yeah, it's Gateway. So I'm curious. I'm honestly surprised you went with that as your number 2, but I'll, it's, hey, that's, you're free to make that choice. I will say my second choice is going to be and maybe this will surprise some people. Maybe I'm alone in this, but the audience that you get at the movie theater.
It's very dependent,
It is very
it can go good or it can go bad. As I mentioned on my Mortal Kombat review a couple weeks ago about the child behind me that needed everything explained.
Right. And fortunately, it's like I see complaints all the time online about moviegoers and their experience with other people in the theater and rudeness and interruptions and things like that. And hey, I totally get that. I have certainly had some experiences here and there that have been problematic. But I have apparently been extremely lucky because for the most part, it has always been mostly positive and like nothing that has detracted from my experience. If anything, it's actually added to it. It's and all of my best memories, I think, of being at the theater and my favorite experiences and the biggest experiences have always benefited from having a crowd, an audience, a group of people who are all really excited to actually be there and seeing something, whether it's Avengers Endgame or Infinity War on opening night, other DC movies that I've been really excited for. The Dark Knight, was a very formative experience for me. And I saw that, at the midnight showing with a bunch of other, fans, and it was just jam packed. Some people dressed up as Batman. The finale of the Harry Potter series with a sold out midnight show with fans dressed up as characters. Or even just, seeing a random horror movie or random comedy. Like, I think those genres especially benefit from seeing it with a bigger crowd and people who don't know what to expect, because comedy and horror are very much dependent on expectations and surprise. And so I think being surprised and being scared or like being tickled along with a group of people, especially strangers, I think adds to it. And I would definitely wouldn't change that. And even Mortal Kombat, which you mentioned is having a bad kind of little experience with that. My experience with Mortal Kombat was incredibly boosted by seeing it with an audience who was very much into it, very much excited to be at the movies. And I basically bought into their positive energy and their excitement about it. So that for sure, I think, along with screen and sound are clearly my top 2, as you can see. But when I think of the movies, those are the first things that come to mind and why I love going so much.
I mean, we saw throughout the pandemic, as people desperately missed theaters, how many times the Avengers Endgame, the Avengers Assemble scene with theatrical reactions was posted with people begging to have that back. So my theater was just like that. I'm with you. The audience can be absolutely electric. And I would say that 9 times out of 10, it is a positive experience rather than a negative one when it comes to being surrounded by an audience. So definitely worth the pick there. I know future episode, we are going to be diving into some of our best theatrical experiences. So I don't want to give, or I guess theatrical and crowd experiences. So I don't want to go too deep into any specifics, but anybody knows about Endgame and Infinity War and that reaction. So that kind of ties into, I'm going to use it, but this isn't as similar as IMAX versus screen and sound. So I'm still going to use my number 3 pick here, which deals with audience, but this is a blast from the past. Rest in peace. I wish you were still here, but midnight premieres. You mentioned that. With your audience description, but the time before, I guess it all unfortunately ended with, or for the most part, after The Dark Knight Rises and everything in Aurora, which was devastating. But that's kind of what signaled the end of the midnight movie era.
For sure.
Yeah. But I have so many memories of different. The first one I ever went to is Spider-Man 3, which at the time as a child I was like, this is awesome. Obviously it has aged a little less than great, being the least of those three movies. But like, I saw multiple Harry Potter movies from 5 through 7 part 2 all at midnight. I saw Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I saw what else? I'm trying to think. I like, my family, that was like a thing that my family did. We would go see midnight movies. I saw a few Pirates of the Caribbean movies at midnight. And that was just so fun because like it goes hand in hand with your audience thing. Like if you're seeing a movie at midnight, you know it's going to be like the diehard fans that are there to see it. I remember seeing Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 at midnight and going I wore like a Professor Quirrell costume. Like I had my wand. I was interviewed on the news at the theater because like the Potter madness was just, it was packed. All the screens were showing that. And then, you know, coming out at the same time as everybody else and having witnessed the same thing, and being like super excited and just hearing the theater buzz. I mean, obviously you still get that now Thursday at 6 p.m. or whatever it is, like the night before, but it's not the same. Like you have going to a movie at 6 p.m. on a Thursday is like, hey, I just got off work, I'm going to go to the movies. It's not planning my, you're right. I'm not testing my commitment. I'm not planning my day, my evening around going to the movies at midnight and then coming out at 2:30 in the morning, 3 a.m. and being willing to suffer the next day because I saw this movie. But
agreed.
There's just, there were so many great memories doing that. And I understand why it's changed, but you know, imagine seeing Endgame at midnight and having that reaction. Like it would be, I wish that was still a thing.
I strong agree. And I think, you know, again, rattling some ideas off the top of my head, or memories rather, that I have of midnight. I mentioned The Dark Knight, of course. I mentioned Harry Potter, Deathly Hallows 2, part 2. Avengers, freshman year of high school, seeing that at midnight was wild. The Dark Knight Rises. My brother and I and one of my best friends.
I saw that as well. Dark Knight Rises.
I
want to say Planet of the Apes, one of those movies.
Really? Okay. We got to the theater at 9 p.m. We were the first ones in the auditorium. We were laying out across the chairs. We were like on our phones, like taking naps. Like it was 3 hours before this thing was getting ready to be unleashed, and we did not want to get bad seats because this was even prior to any assigned seating and picking your seats beforehand or even at the theater. So that definitely is a memory that sticks out to me. But yeah, no, those were great, and I do wish that they would you know, I understand why they've gotten rid of them, but I would like, even if it's not a regular thing, for them to be brought back in like some capacity, I think, because it is fun and unique. My third choice, it's kind of I don't know what you're gonna think of this, but I think my third choice I'm gonna go with here is the date night aspect of the movies. So what I mean,
one of two ways here.
So what I mean here is that I am, you know, I'm co-hosting this podcast, so I like movies, if you hadn't noticed, and I watch a lot of new releases. I love going to the theater, clearly, and my girlfriend Reagan, she likes movies a lot too, of course, and I'm certainly rubbing off on her in that respect, and she's more than willing to go check stuff out with me. But over the last year, like, we have certainly been missing that element of like, oh, some new movie just came out. Let's go to the theater. Like, we'll plan our night around it. Like, we'll go get dinner and then go to the movie, or we'll go, you know, get snacks and head in, and like, it'll be a fun like thing we can do together. Whereas during the pandemic, it was mostly, oh, okay, let's throw this on. Like it's not, again, it doesn't have that event feel to it, or like
Right.
something you kind of have to plan, and like it has a little bit more fun involved. Now, this week or last week, from this point of view, as you mentioned, I'm seeing A Quiet Place Part 2 while we are on vacation in New York, and we're on this big trip together, and that's gonna be fun. Like we're planning our evening kind of around that, and like that's something we're really looking forward to, being able to go out together and like seeing that is going to be a lot of fun, and something I'm looking forward to. So having that back in our lives is certainly a nice luxury, and is something I definitely maybe took for granted in the past, but certainly will not be going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much with you there. Rebecca and I, our first date was to a movie, and I mean, obviously we have had plenty since then. We've had a ton of, like, the summer that I was able, because like you, I'm like the movie buff, and she'll go to them occasionally with me, but she's not seeing them at the volume that I am. It has to be like usually it has to be something she wants to see as well. She's not just going to tag along to something that I want to see. But the one summer that I was able to get her on Movie Pass back before that RIP'd, was, she was like, we were seeing everything together, and it was a blast. But we've had a couple like like one that sticks out a lot. Now You See Me. It was like not a date night, but an afternoon. We were going to go to the pool. This is like in high school. We were going to go to the pool, and then it started thunderstorming, and we were like, what do we do now? And we just like went to the movies, picked something, and saw Now You See Me. And it was a blast. So just like getting to do that. It's a simple date idea, but it's always fun. I love the dinner and a movie date night. But I will say, if you're the one doing that style of date night, it's fantastic. But if you are in the theater and there are some middle schoolers on date night in the back of your theater, it can go a completely different direction. So
that's absolutely true. Yes. And date nights at the movies certainly started for me in like middle school and high school, early high school. So yeah, it's a different vibe, certainly.
Definitely different vibe. My number 4 pick here, you're gonna laugh, but it is honestly one of the very best things about the movie theater experience, and it's just an absolute feeling of relief when you go to the theater and you get to do this. It is the post movie pee, which ties into that big ass drinks. It goes back to number 2 for me, but you're in there, you're slurping down a 64-ounce Diet Coke, whatever you want to drink, but then the credits start to roll, and you're like, thank God, it's time. You're going with the horde of other people storming to the bathroom, and that pee is minimum 60 seconds. And it is absolutely magical. You've been waiting all movie. You don't want the movie to end, but your bladder's been begging. And there's no greater feeling of relief than the post-movie pee. It's truly a delight, an unexpected delight, that when you're going to the movies, you don't go for the pee, but it's just an added bonus.
Okay, I certainly didn't expect you to go that route.
I told you I was getting outside of the box here.
I ain't mad at it.
You're not mad because it leaves something better for you, probably.
For sure.
Honestly, when I was making my strategy here, I was like, post movie P is like a top 1 or 2 pick for me, but I know for a fact it's nowhere near Johnny's radar. So I'm going to let that slip to a later round.
Okay. Smart. Okay. So this is, you had the Coke freestyle and the big ass drinks at 2. This is in that same realm, but not exactly the same. So, I gotta say the movie theater popcorn.
Incredible.
You cannot top that. You cannot do that. Okay. The movie theater popcorn hits different. It's just plain and simple. The butter,
as the kids say, like, it's bussin'.
Yeah, it is bussin', and like that like horrible silicone like butter that you get out of the machine and put on.
You just drown that baby.
Your arteries are screaming, but your taste buds are not. It's a pleasant treat. It's especially if it's fresh, like hot out of the popper, and you get a little bit of salt on there, really just fuck up your kidneys, and combine that, as you mentioned earlier, with a big gulp drink or an icy or something like that, and you got a solid combo there. Again, a double whammy of sorts. So while I do not, as I mentioned, get concessions all the time, or maybe not so often, when I do get it, popcorn would probably be my go-to. I think it's and the great thing about popcorn is like you can dress it up a lot, but it's a fairly like simple, easy treat. Like I can eat a lot of that and like feel fine. So it's not like I'm getting a foot-long hot dog or whatever the hell these places are serving nowadays.
I will say I went to, when I was going to see Mortal Kombat, and I was at the AMC with the like dine-in, and I hadn't had dinner. My movie was at like 7:30 and I was running late, so I didn't have time to grab anything. And so I used the AMC app and I ordered bacon cheese fries. And it was just it was just like not the same eating those in a movie as it was eating, like popping some popcorn. But this is honestly,
and
go ahead.
Yeah, and last bit is that popcorn is the great thing about that is a very easy shareable treat as well. So if you're there with your partner on like a date night, or if you're with a family or something like that, it's very easy to pass around. Everyone can kind of get their fill in on it.
I was torn. I didn't want to go with 2 concession stand purchases on my list. So I was between going with the drinks or the movie theater popcorn. Obviously, movie theater popcorn very high on my list, but for the longest time I was like, I hate popcorn unless it's movie theater popcorn. Like I despised having like out of the bag popcorn at home, because it just couldn't compare. Like you said, since the pandemic hit, I was forced to adapt if I wanted any popcorn whatsoever. So now I'm a at-home popcorn guy as well, but it still just can't compete. And I love this. This may sound crazy, but I love getting popcorn and a thing of Sour Patch Kids. Sprinkle the Sour Patch Kids into the popcorn, and that salty, hot popcorn kind of makes the Sour Patch Kids gooey, the perfect amount. There are no hard Sour Patch Kids, and like the sweet, the sour, the salty, it's just an explosion of flavor in your mouth, and can't be beat. So I totally respect that. Movie theater popcorn at a 4 is an absolute steal, Johnny. Great pick.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right, the final pick. Let's do 5 and then an honorable mention. Does that sound all right? Because I still have quite a bit that I would like to, because I don't want to say it now and have it be something that you're potentially gonna. I don't want to spoil anything that you're gonna.
How about we can do our 5s and then we can just rattle off some honorable mentions.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, number 5 for me. You know what? There are some things that maybe. Okay, I'll use this. One of them is more genuine and will make me have a better list, and the other one's more fun. And I'll use that as one of my honorable mentions. But here we go. Number 5 for me is, the best way I can think to describe this is forced attention. It's something that you only get at the movie theater, and something that I've struggled with even as like a diehard movie fan at home. But when you're at home, there are just so many distractions, whether it's your phone sitting there, whether it's, for me, my dog, or whether it's just like a noise outside. But at home, it's so easy. You can pause the movie and get up and go to the bathroom or check your Twitter or something. But when you're at the movie theater, you're fully locked in. Phone is on do not disturb, and it's socially, you get shamed if you look at it whatsoever. You're holding that pee until you get that post-movie pee. There's no dog to bark. That you're just completely, you're away from everything in the world, and you're completely locked in on what's on screen and what's happening, and you're just transported for an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, depending on what you're seeing, unless it's The Irishman. But you're just completely, totally one-on-one locked in with the movie and what's on screen. And I just love that about, there's no way that you can replicate that at home. At least not me. I don't have the discipline to do, or the conducive viewing environment to make that happen. So being able to just be completely and totally invested in the movie and nothing else is one of my favorite things about going to the theater.
Okay. I respect that.
Maybe you have more discipline at home and can do it, but
I definitely I have not really ever had an issue with that. I will say at home, I'm certainly more likely to slip my attention away just because no one, I don't need to be respectful of anyone else that's in there. Like it's just me. But yeah, at the theater, usually I'm pretty locked in. I mean, I think that goes back to, like I mentioned earlier, I don't really go for the concessions necessarily just because I do like to be so like hyper focused in. But yeah, no, that's a good one. I think, especially in this day and age, I think people need to pay attention, zoom in, focus. So it's a good one.
what do you have here to round out the draft, Mr. Irrelevant here?
Let's see. Okay, I got it. My fifth and final choice is going to be, and this might be a little bit weird, but I'm going with the posters and pop-ups that you get at a movie theater. So what I mean is the
cardboard cutouts.
Yeah, so at a movie theater, of course, and posters, and this is something we've really seen over the last year due to the pandemic and due to theaters being closed, is the fact that we don't have, some of these, the marketing of these movies has been hit or miss, kind of all over the place, admittedly. And part of that is the poster game. Poster game is lacking a little bit. Dune, for example, which I am clearly a huge fan of and have been advocating for, I think they really dropped the ball last fall when they didn't, no, rhyme intended, when they chose not to release a poster along with the trailer. I thought that was kind of odd. I think posters in general have just been kind of slipping down because I think the theatrical is something they haven't been focusing on as much, and not even just due to the fact that theaters have been closed, but just because less and less people do go to the movies these days. But theaters, the posters are really designed for theaters. Like they're posted on the walls in there. They get your attention as you're walking in and out, and make, catch your eye and be like, oh, okay, I got to see that. When's that coming out? And then the pop-ups, the big cardboard cutouts, those are super unique to the theater because, I mean, the posters you can still see online. You can find those. But the pop-ups, those are, big cutouts that they build. And a lot of times you can take pictures with them, or you can like get inside of the cutout and like be part of it. I remember one in particular, Wonder Woman, when that came out a few years ago now. My sister-in-law and we went to go see that, and they had a big one where she was doing her pose with her arms, and we went up and got a picture of ourselves doing that, and I thought that was really cool. And I just remember several throughout the years that I had you stop and take a picture with her real quick, and you take turns getting inside and everything. So I think those are just fun and like very unique and specific to the theater. Again, you don't get that anywhere else, and I think posters benefit the most from theaters because I think having those out there and relying on those for getting people's attention, I think that's why posters were so much better in the pre-internet era or the pre-social media era, just because they had to rely on those to get more attention. So many classic posters from decades previous, and now it seems like they're very much cookie cutter, generic. When you do get a special one, especially for a big movie, it's something to celebrate. So that would be my fifth and final pick.
I respect it a little. I didn't necessarily expect that to make the cut, but I totally get it. I remember being, not so much anymore, but in middle school, on those middle school dates, taking funny pictures for Facebook, in front of all the pop-ups, right. Either there or in like the built-in arcade, another relic of old movie theaters, the like claw machine and shooting games over in the corner for some reason. But yeah, I also I don't know if all theaters did it, but at the Regal that I went to growing up, they would usually have like two, not full like 24 by 36 posters, but maybe like a little like 12 by 20. I don't know what the dimensions are, but a small, bigger than a piece of paper, but not like a full size poster, just like small posters of two movies that were playing that you could just take home. So I had a collection of those. They were never like good movies. It was always like a Matthew McConaughey rom-com or something. But I had a small collection of those that I always thought was cool just to grab on your way out of the theater.
Yeah.
So I respect it. Posters and pop-ups.
I will say real quick that you just brought bringing that to mind. The little, many times the mini posters that they supply, they allow you to like take out of the theater. Yeah, I mean, you can't get that anywhere else. Like I remember The Dark Knight Rises. I got one. Blade Runner 2049. Actually, I got a couple of them, which was really cool. I still have those. The Last Jedi, I remember going and they were handing those out a lot, and many times it's related to IMAX specifically. Again, I feel like they don't do those nearly as much anymore, which is kind of a bummer. I'd like to see more studios kind of like take that initiative and give us a little swag for turning up at opening night. You know what I mean?
I'm always down for a little swag. Any honorable mentions here? I've got 4 on my list that were I didn't know what you were going, so I had to have some backups ready to pull out in case they were taken off the board. But something we've mentioned a few times but never specified as a draft pick: reserve seating, which goes hand in hand with the recliners. That revolution started a couple years ago where theaters were like, how do we get people into our theater? We can't just have them in a stadium chair anymore. We have to make it plush and luxury for them. So the recliners, and then the ability to pick your seats in advance. Like you said, nobody wants to sit front row. So I just got my A Quiet Place 2 ticket for June 1st, which I guess is like tomorrow if you're listening to this podcast. But for us, it's still like a week and a half away. But I got that, picked my seats, and I don't have to worry about getting there 30 minutes in advance,
Right.
So that was an absolute game changer. The Regal roller coaster, loved that as a child. Still hold my hands up and ride it in theaters today. That little intro video before any movie, before the previews, where it's like the AMC has one as well, but it's with like the Coke machine and the little robots on it, but it can't compete with the roller coasters. Cold, dark theater on a summer day,
Ooh, yeah.
You're out, you're trying to find something to beat the heat. Why not go to the movies when you're going in? You're going in and it's 90 degrees outside, and you just get that nice cold leather, the frigid temperature, and it's just dark and your eyes take a minute to adjust. That's a great feeling. And then I mentioned Movie Pass earlier, rest in peace King, but AMC Stubs, that's another, just subscription services in general. I think AMC is the best, better than the Regal one currently, but the ability to see multiple movies a week at an affordable price is something that is incredible about going to the movie theater, and hopefully gets more people to go.
Yeah, all great choices. I will say, to the summer thing, so many countless times, especially growing up in North Carolina, which is a pretty hot state, especially during the summer months. Like I can recall, stepping out of a movie theater and feeling that hot air hit you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And just
that's another thing of I didn't know if we were going to do it, but I started drafting a list for worst movie theater things. And one of the number one pick is being blinded leaving the theater after an afternoon screening. Like you've been in the dark for so long, and then you step outside. One of the theaters by my home is like, it's like white pavement and there's like a fountain, and it's like that's what the area is like outside of like the box office and the entrance. So it's like reflecting all of the light right back up at you, and it's just like you need 3 pairs of sunglasses to make it to your car, all right?
Yeah, so that's pretty much exactly how it is. But yeah, and also the last bit, the strange feeling, I don't know, it's not necessarily good or bad, I don't know what your feelings are, but for me, but like going in during the day and then you come out and it's dark.
Yes, I contemplated that as well, the like time change, because like I said, with my forced attention and just being fully immersed in it, it's like, wait, it turned to nighttime while I was in there.
Exactly, yeah. So, but yeah, I didn't have any honorable mentions. I was strapped for what I came up with, and I pretty much got everything that I wanted. So that went well for me, I will say.
Great draft. Like I said, so many great things about going to the movies that I am, like you said, you got all you wanted. I got all I wanted. It's a great lineup here. Tons of great things about going to the movies. And I'm excited to do a ton of that this summer as we dive into our summer movie schedule here. So that's it. The Best Movie Theater Things draft. We will drop these graphics on social and let us know what we missed. Let us know who you think had a better draft. I respect Johnny's picks, and I think he had a great draft. I think I did as well. So hopefully this vote would end up 50-50 on social media. But thank you all for listening. We really appreciate it week in and week out. We do it for you folks.
Yes, thank you all so much for keeping up with us now that we're fully back in swing. Bit of a weird couple weeks here, but I think it's all good. We appreciate your support and supporting us here as well as on social media, Twitter, Instagram, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube where you can find all the podcast episodes. And you can find those accounts at Inside Film Room.
And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, iHeartRadio, anywhere you can get a podcast. We are there. And be sure to subscribe so next week you don't miss out on A Quiet Place Part 2. We will be breaking that down at long last. So we will see you then.